はい、それでは、定刻となりましたので、東北大
So
学
it's
災
time.
害科学国際研究所、
So
2025
I'd like
年ミ
to
ャンマー
start
地震に関する報告会を開
IRIDeS
催をいたします。
Myanmar
ご参加
Earthquake
いただいておりまし
Briefing.
てありがとうございます。The
Thank you very
International
much for
Research
joining
Institute of
us.
Disaster Science, IRIDeS at Tohoku University is now holding the debriefing session on 2025 Myanmar earthquake. Thank you very much for your participation. 本日の司会を務めさせていただきます、東北
I'm
大学災害科学国際研究所の森口です。どうぞよろ
IRIDeS
しくお願いいたします。My name is
Moriguchi.
修森口, a member of IRIDES, and I will be serving as one of the moderators for today's debriefing session. で、この、報告会は、今ちょっと英語と日本語
So
で両方で喋っておりますけれども、この後
this
同時通訳
debriefing
で
session
進んでまいります。で、
has a
前半の発表
simultaneous
は日本
translation.
語がメインで、英語に翻
So the
訳をし
first
ます。
half
で、休憩
will
を挟み
be
まし
presented
て、
in
後半は
Japanese,
英語
translated
が
to
メインで、
English.
日本語で日本語
The
に翻
latter
訳が
half
されます。
will
で、
be
日本語
presented
と
in
英語のチャン
English
ネル
with
のやり
Japanese
方は、
translation.
すみません、スライドを共有していただいてもよろしいですか？今、スライドが出てるかと思いますけども、この
Here
翻訳のボタンを押してい
is
た
the
だいて、
explanation
日本語、英語を選んでいただくというような
of
システム
how
にな
to
っています。
select Japanese and
Simultaneous
English for
Japanese
translation.
translation is provided. So for today's debriefing session, the first half will be presented in Japanese and followed by the later half in English after a short break. So please refer to the screen and chat box for instructions on how to select both Japanese and English translation channels. はい。それでは、ここからは、日本語
So
で前半を進めていきた
I'd
いと
like
思
to
います。
start in Japanese for the
はい。
half,
まず、
first half.
開会に先立ちまして、今回の地震
So
で
for
亡くなられ
beginning,
た方々に対して、黙祷
we'd
を
like
捧
to
げたい
offer
と思います。
a
森
moment
口
of
君お願
silence
いしま
for
す。
those
祈りを
who
始め。
lost their lives.
ご協力ありがとうございました。お
Thank you
お
very
直りくだ
much.
さい。それでは、まずはじめに、東北
So
大学災害科学
first,
国際研究所所長、栗山真一よ
so
り
the
ご挨
director
拶
of
をいただきま
IRIDeS,
す。
Shinji
所長
Kuriyama,
お
will
願いい
make
たします。
an opening
はい、あり
remark.
がとうございます。ご紹
Thank
介い
you
た
very
だきま
much.
した栗山でございます。
I'm
まずはじ
Kuriyama.
めに何よりこの
So
深刻な地
first,
震で亡くなられた方
I'd
々
like to
に中心より哀悼の意を表し
extend
ます。ま
my
た、ご
condolences
家
to
族の
those
皆
who
様
lost
に
their
心よ
lives
りお見舞い申し
and
上
their
げま
loved
す。
ones.
で、本日は皆様お集まりいただきありがとうご
So
ざいます。
today,
我々
thank you very
先
much
週
for participating.
タイバンコクに行ってまいりまし
So
て、
we
ミャ
went
ン
to
マーあるいはバ
Bangkok
ンコクの
last
さま
week
ざまな状況を情報を集める、あるいは視察させ
and
てい
we
ただくということ
collected
でございま
information
した。それ
on
の今日、
Thailand, Myanmar,
まあ、どういうことを我々すべきかということを皆
and
様にお伝
today
えし
we'd
てい
like
か
to
な
talk
と思い
about
ます。
what
た
we
だ最
should
初に
do.
ちょっとお断りしておかなければいけ
But
ないこと
also,
は
I
です
want,
ね、
I want to stress
ミャンマー
the
には実際
beginning,
には入ってございません。
but we
まあ
haven't
様々な
actually
理
been
由が
to
ございまして、
Myanmar
ただ
with
まあ、
various
バンコクに
reasons.
いるミャンマーの方々からミ
But
ャ
we
ンマ
have
ーの情
spoken
報は
to
様々
people from Myanmar
い
in
ただいたの
Thailand
と、まあ、バンコ
getting
ク、1000キロ
information
離れ
about
てるんですが、や
Myanmar.
はり大変な被害を
But
被った
Bangkok, which is 1,000
につい
kilometers
て、
away,
情報を得てお
but
り
suffered
ま
a
す
lot
の
of
で、そのあたり
damage.
ぜひシェアさ
So
せ
we
ていただき
collected
たいと思います。
information in
で、タイで
Bangkok.
はや
So
は
we
り
like to share what
地
we
震に慣
learned.
れてないということで、防災教
So
育、
because
あ
they're
るいは
not
その
used
早
to
期防
the
止策とか
earthquake,
建物
so
の
the
耐震
disaster
に
resilience
ついて、ぜ
education,
ひご一
you
緒
know,
したい
those
という
early
ことも
warnings.
言っていただいてま
So
すので、その方向のお
they
話を
have
伺い
showed
たい
their
と思います。
interest in
またミャン
cooperation.
マー
So
も
I'd
で
like
す
to
ね、
talk about
やはり
that.
ご承知おきいただ
And
いている
Myanmar,
と思うんですが、その情
as
報
you
の
probably
精度、
know,
確からしさとかですね、そも
so
そも
the
その
accuracy
情
of
報を
information
出していいのかどうか、情報元の
and
方のご協
whether
力をい
it's
ただいているのか、あるい
possible
は
to release
そ
that
の情報
information.
を流すことでご自身、あるいは
So
その周りの方に
what
ご迷
would be
惑がか
the
からないのかとか、さまざまな
consequence or
状
impact of
況がございました。
releasing the
で
information?
すの
There are
で、今
lots
日
of
も可能な限
elements.
りお伝えしたいとは思うんですけれども、
So I'd like to
情
share
報の
as
出ど
much
ころ
as
が
possible,
確かなところだけに限ってますし、また
but we are
これ
limiting
は出
to
さ
the
ないとダメみた
information
いなところもありま
which
す
we
の
can
で、
be
一部は
sure,
ここではお
and there
話しして
are
ないというようなところも
information
ご
that
承
was
知おきいただければ、あるいはその辺
we
でお答え
cannot
いただ
release
けれ
as
ばと
well.
思います。
So We hope you
その
understand.
中でもですね、ミャンマーの方々、
So in
本当に
these
医薬品
constraints,
が不足しているとかですね、それ
people
から
in
メンタルヘル
Myanmar,
スを非
it's
常
a
に気に
lack
されてま
of
したですね。
medicine, and there's a lot of concern about the mental
国
health
の皆様、それ
of
と、
people in
やっぱ
Myanmar,
り情報を世界で流してほしいっていうか、
and
世界で
they
別にメ
like
ディアさんとして流さなく
people
て
to
もいい。
disseminate
隣
information,
人に、自分の隣にいる
not
方に
necessarily
話を
about
して、
as a
ぜひミ
press,
ャンマーを忘れないでほしいみたい
but
な
they would like us to
ニュースの
talk
方おっしゃってま
about
し
this
た。
thing to
ま
people
あ、
around
こ
us
のあたり、ギリ
to
ギリ私からは出せるような情報かな
keep
という
them
ところですの
remember
で、
about
お伝え
Myanmar.
させていただくとともに、今
That's
日は
something I
こ
would
れ
like
か
to
ら
share
お
with you.
話出ます。で、もう一つ
So
だ
we'll
け、
be covering these stories.
複数
One
の
more
方からで
thing,
すね、自分はミャンマーに行ったとか、バンコク
several
に行ったの
people
で発表したいというお申し出はあったんですけど、ちょっと
reached
そ
out
れ
to
だけ
me
としての速報会
saying
ですの
that
で、
they
その
have
あたり何らかの
been
形
to
で
Myanmar and wanted to
な
present,
かなかそこはご
but for
話
this
し
occasion, we had
そ
to
こは
limit
申し訳なかった
this
と思い
presentation
ます。
to
よろしくお願い
us
します。
members of
じゃあ今日
IRIDeS.
はこれから
So I hope you
意
understand.
見交換、情報交
So
換、それからど
today
うしていくかを
we'll be
よ
starting
ろしくお願いいたします。
information sharing and exchange of
ご
information
清聴ありがとうご
opinions.
ざいました。
Thank you very much.
続きまして、対日本大使館
So
の梶原
first,
徹講師にお
we'd
越し
like
い
to
ただいてお
start
ります。
with
建設と
Toru
発展、それ
Kajiwara,
から
the
日本政府
Minister
対応についてお
of the
話をいただく
Embassy
予
of
定となっており
Thailand
ます。梶原講師、よ
about
ろしくお
the
願いいたしま
response
す。
of Japanese government.
はい。私、対日本大使館
I'm
の、経済部としてます、梶原と申しますが、
Japanese
聞こえておりますでしょうか。
Ambassador, Embassy in Thailand. I'm
よろしくお願い
Kajiwara
しま
as
す
a
本
minister.
日このような機会を与えていただきまして、
Thank you very much for
まず
this
私
opportunity
ども
today.
大体日本大使館からもですね、
So as the
地震で
embassy
亡くなられた
in
方
Thailand
およびですね、ご家族の
would like
皆
to
様にですね、
extend
お
our
詫びを含めてで
condolences
すね、お見舞いを
to those who lost their lives
を申し上げさせていただきま
and
す。
their loved ones.
私、在タイのですね、日本大使館の立
So
場か
I
ら、
work
今回のですね、
in
ミャンマーの地
Japanese
震
embassy
の
in
被害につ
Thailand,
いて、
and from my
日本がタイにですね、
perspective,
どのような
I'd like to
協
share
力をしていっているかということを、
what Japan has been doing for
ま
Thailand
た地
to
震から
help
1ヶ月
in this
経って
occasion.
ないという状況なんでございま
So
す
it's less than a
やっ
month
ぱり地震
since
情
the
報からですね、
earthquake,
非
but
常に
right after the
皆さんお分かりの通り
earthquake,
バンコクの方で、ビルが、
So
建設のビルが一棟倒壊、
Bangkok, one building
あ
under
と
construction
地
collapsed,
震の特徴もあってですね、
and
非常に
because of the
被害が非常
characteristics
に多いんですけれども、
of
そ
the
れがか
earthquake,
なりの揺れを感じたということ
so a lot of
ま
high-rise
タイの皆
buildings
様がですね、
suffered
地震
damage
に慣れて
because
ない
people
多く
in
の方がです
Thailand
ね、
are not
30年、40
used
年、
to
50
the
年生きて
earthquake.
地震は初めてだと
Many
いう
people
ような形
mentioned
で
that it's their
おっしゃって
first
ました。
time
実際にはもちろんもう少
to
し弱い
experience
地
the
震があ
earthquake.
るというふうに聞いてる
Of
んで
course,
すけ
there
れども、
were
皆様
weaker
体感と
earthquake,
してですね、そのようなことをおっしゃるぐらい、非
but
常に
that's how
大き
they
な
felt,
衝
and
撃をで
that's
すね、与えた
how
というよう
strong
な出来事でございま
this
す。
earthquake
あと
was.
一つですね、この、こういったまさ
And
にイベントというか
in
国会をやっていただく場合に
such
ですね、
occasion of
一つ申し上げ
debriefing,
ますと、バン
one
コク
thing I
の
want
です
to
ね、
mention
市内につきましては、
that
先ほど申しま
in
したように、い
Bangkok,
ろいろな形での、なんていうんでしょうか、そのショックっていうのは、
so there has been
市
lots
民の
of
ですね、皆様の中にある
shocks
というのは事実なんですけれども、
felt
やは
by
り
citizens,
バンコクの街の機能自体はですね、もう
but in
ほぼ
terms
す
of
べてというか、
function
もうすべ
of the
て回
city
復
of
しておりまし
Bangkok,
て、
almost
観
all
光
have
客の皆
recovered.
様なんかもですね、日本
But
以外を含め
tourists
各国からですね、実は
and
4月はそうちょうど休総学が
from
ござい
Japan
ま
and
し
place,
て、
other places
それを
because
一つ
this is
の、
a
対外
Lunar New Year as
対
well.
内観光ですね、バンコクにタイに来ていた
So
だくと、観光キャンペーンとしても以前か
there's
ら
also a
していただ
tourism
いておりまし
campaign
て、そういったキャンペーンも
to
実は比較
invite
的成
people
功した
to
というような
Bangkok.
受け止め方でございま
So
して、
such
街の
campaign
雰囲気
did
としま
work,
してはですね、少なく
and
と
in
も皆様
terms
に来てい
of
ただいて、ごしていただいて、例えばです
atmosphere
ね、
of the
いろい
city,
ろ、例えばその公共交通に乗っていただいたりとか、
you
お
can
店行っていただい
come
たりとか、
and
していただくとで
see,
すね、全く普通に戻っている
enjoy
という状
shops,
況で
and
ございま
it's
して、
almost come
実
back
は
to
まさに
normal.
復興という意味でね、
So in terms of
タイは非常に今、復興に普
reconstruction,
通に戻っているという
recovery,
ことで、もし、とこ
Thai has come back
計
to
画
its
していただいている方がいらっしゃいましたら、
normal
安心
state.
してですね、
So
来
if
ていただ
you're
ければというふう
planning
に
to
思い
come
ま
to
す。
Thai,
そ
please
の
be
他
assured
その
that
他
it's
タ
okay.
イ政府の、日本政府の、 協力
So
ということで、
from us, in terms of Thai government and Japanese government.
説明の資料の方で挙げさせていただきました。
So this is some
日本の
material
方からですね、やはり日本
from the government of
非常に
Thai.
親日的な国でもございますし、日本の地震に対する知見ということにものすごく期
Japanese
待がですね、
insights to the
いろんな方から寄
earthquake
せられまして、
and knowledge are
特にですね、
highly
道路
valued,
分野とですね、建設分野、
especially
建築分野
road
ですね、
and
に
construction
まして、協力を今で
are
して
to
おります。
build
ま
that
たです
Japan's
ね、
offering support.
道路分野につきまして、
So for roads,
こちらの運輸省の方からですね、
for the
道路の
emlet
安全対策ですとか、あとはその、
has
まさに地震の後のですね、点検といったものをどうやって行うか。あと、
come
実は
about
高速道路
how to do the
ですね、
security
工事現場
check
というのが、これは
and
地
the
震
safety
なんですけれど
measurement
も、そこで事故
and
が
construction
起きてしまっ
site.
たと、工事現場の事故というのが起きてしまったというようなことが
there was
数年前にございまして、これが
accident in a construction
地震後
site
にですね、よりその
before the earthquake, and that was
これ早急に対策しなきゃいけない
actually caused a lot of the
これ一
anxiety.
番最初に少し見てほしいということで、で、
So that was the first
4
thing
日か5日
that in
のタイミングでですね、
4th and
国土
5th,
交通省と、首都高
so
こちらにも
specialists
記者が
from
来
Emlet
ていただきまして、
and Tokyo High
リサーチを
Expressway,
したりですとかですね、
the specialists came
でまず最初に見報告
and did a research and
その後
exchange
ですね、
opinions.
翌週になるんですけれども、世界銀行
And the week after,
事務所があるんですけれども、
World
こ
Bank,
ちらと共催でですね、
Thai office,
建築に関する国
and
際会議
Japanese
を開催させ
embassy
ていただきました。
co-organized this international conference
ですね、
about earthquake and construction
ご覧いただいている
architecture,
先生も含めてですね、各国の
including
建築の専門家
professors who are participating today. We had a specialist of this field,
診断といった制度も含めた
and Japan also
共有
shared the insights about the building health check.
あと、4月10日ですけれど
And
も、
April
また
10th,
道路の分野でですね、専門家のチーム
the
が
road field
すぐ1週間後にですね、
specialists
来ていただきまして、
visited Bangkok
もし本格的な形で運輸省でワークショッ
and
プというのを
at the Emlet
で
held
その
a workshop
道路の点検をどうやってやっていただ
how
い
to
て
do
ということ
the
ですとか、
checking
先ほど
of the
工事
road
現場の安全の確保
after the earthquake,
ワー
how
ク
to
ショップを開
secure
催
the
しました。
safety of the construction
そのま
site.
た1週間後ですけれども、今度建
And the
築分
week
野で
after
ですね、
that,
専門家の
for
チーム
the
に来ていただきまして、
architecture field
政府関係者
specialists
専門家と協力をしてい
visited
ただきました。
Bangkok
これではですね、
and
建築
discussed
の対策で
with
すとか、
the counterparts
に関して
about
意
the
見を
seismic
ということ
resilience.
でございます。と少し
And
時間が空くというか、来月の話になるんですけれども、
it'll be next month.
栗山先生の方からも少しお話がありましたけれども、やは
So
り
as Mr. Kuriyama mentioned a little,
心のケアということについて、
there's a lot of
関心が集まっておりまして、
concern about the mental health
ケア
care.
に関して日本と
So how we do the mental health care after disaster.
参加していただくような形
So we do the seminar
知見共有の席
in a hybrid format. We'll be sharing
1ヶ
insights.
月の間にですね、これだけいろいろな
So in
形で
this 1 month,
物事というかですね、協力を
there has been this diverse
やはり
contribution and
そうですね
collaboration.
こちらのバンコクの大使館にて
As I'm in embassy, what I feel the most
タイのですね、それぞれの分野の専門家の先生方
this
結びつきというかですね、
there's
絆という
strong
か
ties
そうい
between
った信頼関係というのが
specialists in
すでに
each
で
field.
きていらっしゃるということは
There's
非常に
already a
受け
strong
ております。
relationship of trust
先生方いち早く
by which
お
I'm
越しいただきますし、
moved.
その他のです
And
ね、
many people, specialists
方々
came
先生方も
right after the
非常に
disaster.
ご心配というかですね、
And many
関心を
people
持っていただい
in
て、
Japan
バ
were
ン
concerned
コクの方にお越しいただ
and
く
interested
とい
to
う先生
and
方
came to
非
Bangkok.
常に複数ですね、申し出をいただいたり、状況をいただいたりしま
And
し
we
て、
have been receiving
こういっ
lots
た
of
先生方
offers to
すでにも
support.
うバンコクなりですね、大学の方、タイの大学の先生の方の方と、すでにネットワークがお持ちで、
There's a strong
様々な分野で
network with the university teachers,
すでにしてい
professors,
ただいたり、
and there are lots of support activities going on.
特に建築分野 について、
And for the future,
で、
there'll be further collaboration between the construction area as well, exchange of insights.
の、いろいろなですね、
And in Bangkok,
例えばその地震に対する
in diverse fields,
お話ありました耐震性の評価、
seismic resilience
ですとか、
of the
あとはその防
buildings,
災教育といったことについて
also the disaster risk reduction education.
私も今日
These activities
午
will
前中に
keep going.
朝
Today, in the
ちょうど
morning,
1週間ほど経っておりますので、早速ですね、バンコク都、
it's been
バン
about
コク首都
a
のですね、自治体バンコク都と言っておりますけれども、そちらの副
week,
知事
so
の
there's been I have visited
会議をしてまいりま
the
して、
vice governor
ま
of
さに
the
早速フォローアッ
Bangkok
プをして、いろんな形で
and followed up from the previous activities.
そこで
We've been discussing
例えば
opinion
地震計の設置といったことについても、す
so
ぐ
how we do
で
the
きる、安
how we
心をですね、
place
少し
install the
する
measurement
ような
of the earthquake.
仕組みになると思うんですけれども、
We'll be doing these activities, not only placing these measurements devices, but how we utilize it. So people showed interest about these things and also the
バン
education.
コクのですね、学校に、地震の
They
です
would
ね、
like
簡単な教育というか、
us to
バン
provide
コクの国立学校の
the
先生方に
basic
説明しやすいような、例えばパンフレットみたいなものが
education in the schools in Bangkok, maybe producing a brochure about these disaster resilience
今日もこ
education.
ちらのJICA の
So one by one,
カバレッジ
as the
ご参加いただくと思います
embassy
けれども、
will be
こち
also
らでですね、JICA の
having
事務所ですと
this
か、あと他のいろんな
JICA
日系企業と
collaboration
機関関係者
and
といます
with
ので、
Japanese companies,
協力して
Japanese
いくことが
government
かな
institutions
と思います
will be all
ここでございます
collaborating
が、以上、
to
説明
work
さ
on
せていただ
this
きます。どうもありがとう
issue.
ございました。
So
藤原さん、
that's
あ
it
りがと
from
うござい
me.
ました。
Thank you very
情
much.
報共有ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Mr.
では
Kajiwara.
移らせていただきたいと思います。
I would like to
先
move
生の
on to
お
the
願いいたします。
presentation.
前半の日本語での発表がすべて終わりましたら、前
So
半の
after
発表につい
the
て、Q&A の時
Japanese
間を設けま
presentation,
す。で
we'll
質
have
問
a
がある方は
little Q&A
発
session.
表中に随時 Q&A ボタンを押して、チ
So
ャッ
if
ト
you
欄
have
に
any questions,
質問を記入しておいてください。
please put
その
the
場合、
Q&A
何を
button
質問かを
and
明確に記載をしてください。
write your questions.
それから
And please
ボードマッ
make
プの皆
sure
様におかれましては、報告会
who
終了
your
後に
question
時
is
間を設け
direct
ております
to.
ので、この時
And
間
for
は
the
皆
press
さんからの質
people,
問に限定をさせていただ
we
きます
have。 それでは
other
一つ目の
time
slots reserved for press
地震の
people.
背景と地震動
The background of
地
the
変動
earthquake
タイトルで、
and
発表は東北
the
大学災害科学
earthquake
教授の
movement.
岡田裕太郎助教です。
So
先生よろし
Mr.
くお願いいたします。
Yutaro Okata,
ご紹介ありがとうございます。上
thank
広
you
防災
very
学
much.
研究部門の岡田です。本日は
I'm
2020
Okada.
年3月28日
So
にミャンマー
today
で発生いたしました
I'd like to
巨大
present
地震の
about
背景
the 2025
と地震変動についてよろしくお願いしま
Myanmar
す。
earthquake.
こちらの図に示すように、
So
ミャン
as
マーでは
the graph
インド
shows,
プレートがビルマプレ
in
ートの
Myanmar,
下に沈み
there's
込ん
an
でいます。
Indian plate
こちらの
goes
黒い矢
below
印で
the
示しているように
Burman
プ
plate.
レートの沈み込みの報告は
So
北
see
東、
the
開口軸に対しては
direction
南方
of the plate
この
goes
よう
is
に
the
開口軸に対して斜めに
northeast,
プレートが沈み込むことによ
and
り
this is
プレート
going
境界線の
diagonally
この辺りですね。
under the plate. So
この辺りだったり
here
とか、
there's a fault
青
line
や赤での線で書いている
and this
内陸の活
blue
断層に
and
プレート
red,
が蓄積し、
there are
地震
also
が発生
active
します。
fault lines
ミ
where
ャンマー
there's
で
a
最も
stress
大規模な最大活断
accumulating.
層が
So
今回
the
聞いてます
most
ようにザ
active
ガイン断層です。
fault
この
line
中
is
の
this
ザガイン
Sagaing
断層の青
fault.
い長い線
This blue line is the Sagaing fault.
ザガイン断層はほぼ南北
So
走
this
行の
Sagaing
断
fault
層で、
goes
総延長は約
north-south.
1200km にも
It's about 1,200 kilometers long.
ザガイン断層の正常地殻変動というのは
This
GPS のデ
Sagaing
ータを用いて
fault line's steady movement has been
過
researched
去
with
の
the
研究で
GPS
推定
data.
された断層の
So
深部
this
滑り速度と
is
土着深度の加減
deep area
まとめて
movement
示しています。
of this fault line.
アジーン・テッドティン・エトール2022による GPS データを用い
So
た研究
in
によると、ザ
2022,
ガイン
there
断
was
層の
the
深部
GPS
は
data
年間
research.
16ミリから
So it's
24
about
ミリメートルの速
16
度で
to 24 millimeter a year steady
断層
movement.
の深部の滑りにより、
So with this
深部
steady
では
movement
深いところでは歪みが
in
蓄積
this
していく。
shallow area, also
古川
the
の
stress has been accumulating.
によると、北緯10
So in
この辺りでは
latitude 19.2 to 20.5. At least after 1879, there has been no earthquake stronger than magnitude 7. So in this area has been a blank area of the earthquake. This Sagaing fault, 2025, March 28th, there was a large earthquake. So the magnitude 7.7, and the long area has been destroyed, including this earthquake blank area. Today, I'd like to talk about the destruction area with the satellite data and also the stress change of the area. So first, before moving to the analysis, I'd like to talk about the methods of the analysis. So we have the satellite SAR radar. So we use this radar. So this has the radio wave and uses this radio wave for the analysis. There are two kinds of analysis. First is the pixel offset analysis. So it's less accurate, but it can capture large movements. The other is SAR interferometric analysis. So it measures the difference in change. So this is more accurate, but it cannot be used where the movement is big. So this is SAR data analysis. So this is a pixel offset analysis. So this black circle area, this is a large influence of noise area, but with this red circle, the blue north lateral change and south lateral change. So this is coupled in some places. So this is where there's a cluster movement as large as 5 meters. This circled north latitude 20 to 25.5 degree area. It also corresponds to the earthquake blank area. And this is also interferometric analysis. So in these two images, as you see, this north-south movement shows up. So this is a movement caused by the earthquake. In this analysis, we focus on the north tip and south tip, where it shows C and D. So these are tips of north and south zoomed up. So the black line is the fourth line. So when you look at the C, so this is a north latitude 22.5. And if you look at D, this is a less of resolution, but the south tip is north latitude 18.5. And the south tip of the peak of the movement is about here. So we can see the destruction area between 18.2 to 22.5. So it has destroyed the large area, including the earthquake blank area, and it conforms to the other analysis. And the destruction area is as large as 500 kilometers. So compared to the scale, this destruction area is large. And this is a stress calculation. So these are the conditions of the calculation. If you look at this chart, so the north and south, so this is a positive stress reaction. So in these areas, compared to before the earthquake, we see that a disaster earthquake risk has risen relatively. So this is the summary. So I'd like to summarize this. Thank you very much.
はい、岡田先生、ありがとうございました。それでは、
Thank you, Mr. Okada.
移りたいと思います。
So I'd like to move on to the next
災
presentation.
害対応への衛星情報活用の課題と
The
可能性と、
possibility and challenge of the satellite image in a developing country.
永見幸三特任教授です。
So Professor Nagami from the Green Goals Initiative Tokyo University.
音声大丈夫でしょうか。はい。今ご紹介いただきました東北大学グリーン未来創造機
So
構
I'm Tokyo University Green Goals Initiative
にも務めております
and also a member of IRIDeS. I'm Nagami. So this material, we worked with the Mr. Kawakita of JICA. So he's not here, so I'll be presenting about this presentation.
今回の、すみません。
But this time,
はい。今回の発表の趣旨ですけれども、
so the
純粋に
overview,
とかですね、新規性、独創性みたいな話とはちょっ
so
と
a little different from research or unique perspective in terms of utilizing data. So how we can contribute to the effective rescue activities on the ground. So that's the perspective, what kind of information would be useful. As you all know, Myanmar is in a very special situation. Since 2021, there's been a civil war, so the military government controlling 25%, and also the Sagaing area, which was the epicenter, which is also the center of this civil war. So which restricted on-the-ground activities a lot, and we had a natural disaster. So the satellite imagery, the importance of it has been highlighted, but at the same time, at the rapidness and accuracy, we have faced the challenges as well. So this Copernicus satellite, the EU's satellite analysis program. So this is the open source data. So this is the Sagaing and Mandalay images. They offer these data pretty rapidly. This is optical data, but this Mandalay, which is a population, large population area, so we couldn't find a lot of data from Copernicus. So one example, this is 03. So this Sagaing area, so like the one on the left. So whether this village looked like was totally destroyed, but this image was revised a few days later. So this is a different website. So they didn't include the damage from the air raid. So the damage of air raid was mixed with the damage of the earthquake. For the Sagaing, this interactive photo maps, there was no information. That was also the reason. So this is a different area. This is in Mandalay. So this optical image from Professor Miura. So these were released March 31st. This is the optical images. Mandalay City preliminary analysis. And in Hainan University, Singapore University, there's also SAR satellite image analysis. So this March 31st, very early stage, So using the optical data might be not so high in resolution, but with the Sentinel-2, Professor Mura released this information, which was a wonderful initiative. And SAR, obviously very accurate. It looks like almost all the Mandalay was destroyed because it shows only like binary information. Just with this data, it's difficult to see how much of damage was caused in Mandalay, building collapse. These elements are difficult to see. We need the optical satellite to supplement this data. And also it was a little later in timing as well. So this with limited samples, so this, but the satellite imageries, we have a Copernicus and Sentinel-A0, so this is a chronology of information. So they were also in contrast in terms of models. Copernicus offered the optical information in the very early stage. But as we saw the air raid damage, there was also the issue of whether we can trust it. But they did revise this data. So that's how they supplemented accuracy. So the Sentinel, as you can see, including JAXA, so these were radio wave data. So they focused on offering raw data. So about April 2nd, so Singapore started to offer the analysis of SAR data, releasing information. So here we see the Professor Mura's preliminary analysis. So it was very early stage, as you can see. And it was very effective. And also as a reference, how JICA team worked. So March 31st, 5 team from JICA left Narita Airport, and the emergency rescue medical team started their activity on the ground April 3rd. So they started the activity at the Mandalay City Hall. And we had this Professor Mura's information when they started the activities, and I believe it contributed to it. So here is a summary. So Copernicus, Sentinel-A0. So the former, they had an early release of the optical data, and there are lots of revisions. So the latter has the radio wave data, and also the general open data with the Sentinel. So this preliminary analysis was effective, done by Professor Miura, the Hiroshima University, to see the actual situation. The high resolution optical data and damage evaluation was very effective. In the severe war situation, there was a challenge of accuracy. So what I propose is the most rational process will be we have the large-scale analysis with the radio wave data to see where the focused area should be. Then we have the optical data to analyze these areas will be the most effective. But as you know, the optical data, so it has to be about the 12 hours cycle. So there's a limit. And also there's the issue of the weather. So there are lots of restrictions. So the timing is one issue. So we should make use of the available satellite imagery worldwide rather than a specific satellite. And SAR data, in that sense, it's available, it's useful for the first phase, but ultimately the optical data is very effective. And user, institution, JICA, United Nations, NGO, for them, they want to focus, they want to know where should be the focus of their activities and where they can secure the safety. So how first we can offer such insights will be very important. And city hall, hospital, infrastructure, lifelines, and transportation, irrigation, these will be very important. So these public institutions, damage situations, analysis will be very important as well. That's it from me. Thank you very much. So the next presentation about the Bangkok damage situation from the IRIDeS member, Saprasi Anamot, and also the Mr. Enokida. Thank you very much for your introduction. So last week, for about a week, so with these members, we visited Bangkok. So we'd like to report what we learned there. As there was the report from the embassy, but it will be just more in detail. So firstly, the why we went to Bangkok is 1,000 kilometers away from the epicenter. But as many of you know, the Bangkok, the ground is very soft. So this is a very soft soil. So this is a long period ground motion damage is very large. So with this 1,000 kilometer distance, still we had a lot of ground motion. So this is the intensity. So in Japanese scale, it's intensity 3 or 4. In Japan, with this intensity 3 or 4, it's not a big deal. But as you saw on the media, the press, so there was a collapse of the under construction building. So probably it's left impression in you. And also a lot of water falling from the rooftop pool, and train stopped, and many people panicked, and a lot of chaos in the office areas, and people taking patients away. These many things very difficult to imagine in Japan. Also, there's no earthquake monitoring for the elevators. The elevators are still moving. So in day one, so this is a rough overview. So for the government, so initial response was very slow because there was no experience. And also there was a lot of limits for the SMS sending out information. And there are many stranded people who couldn't get back home. So people who needed only 1 hour to get back had to take 6 hours. And also the communities, the evacuation was very difficult. And also there's no plans for the evacuation. So there were a lot of damage in the office or home. They couldn't decide whether they should go back home. And for the general public, there's no basic knowledge about how to deal with the disaster situation. So this is an English version, so you can refer to it later. So for us, with the Thai people, so there was this guideline, so this 90-pager, and we had a summary on 1 page. So how to do the inspection guideline, And also there were emergency response. So last week we went to Bangkok, as I talked about. So there was the earthquake early warning, the building design, and vulnerable people, international support. So we wanted to see the situations. So we met government institutions, private companies, and international organizations. So for international support, so there's a UNGRR, and also Embassy of Japan, and also university. And we talked to people from Myanmar. As the director talked about, in a short time, there are lots of humanitarian aid needed. That's the food, medical supplies, mental health support. And for a long-term support, would be disaster education, and also the human resource international student exchanges. With the government's agencies, we visited those organizations. So Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, and also disaster prevention and mitigation departments and hospitals. And this is about the initial response on the day one. So this is about the damage to the road. So people can report the damage of the road to the government the day after the disaster. So we use this platform, open the platform that people can actually share the photos of their homes, road around them, and submit it to the government, and government has these images analyzed by the specialists. So the people can feel safer and government can understand the damage. And also there were these brochures about the evacuation centers. And for the private companies, so this building was a high-rise building, highest building 40 years ago. So there's no disaster resilience design. This is the second highest building in Thailand. This didn't have the like seismic resilience devices. So how we can cooperate in terms of this architecture as well, and also as a summary, and so from Myanmar to Thai there are 1,000 kilometers. So this early earthquake warning will be very effective. So maybe a minute or several like seconds, then the alert will be very effective, and Thai people are expecting. And Thai governments are working to install such system, and also structural health monitoring. So in the previous earthquakes, there were these damages. And so there were these sensors installed in buildings. So for these high-rise buildings, we can also support these devices. With these devices, these offices or other buildings, so with the quantitative ways people can know that whether they can go back. And also this is a building design for the high-rise building. Also this will be explained with Professor Aman. These are about the long period ground motion and higher than 50-story building, were closer to the design spectrum. And in Thai as well, since about 10 years ago, there have been these laws and Thai will be installing a lot more disaster resilience from now on, and for the more of the people's consciousness about they do not have these emergency plans, and also how to deal with the stranded commuters. So these are also something Japan can contribute to, also the disaster education. And lastly, the minister from embassy was talking about this mental health. So these are something we can also contribute to. And this is the acknowledgement. So especially this Earthquake Research Center and National Assembly of Thailand have given us huge support, and also these organizations have shared their time with us, and also we have this information as well, so please refer to this as well. Thank you very much.
柳田先生、お願いできますでしょうか。
Professor Nokida?
はい、木田です。共有されてますでしょうか。
I'm Nokida.
はい。私も4月の中旬にですね、
So I
タイに
also
させていただきまして、
visited Thailand
させていただきました。
mid-April,
タイの
and
国民はですね、
the people in Thailand,
の問題、超高層建物と、あとは、
so this long period ground
おっ
motion,
しゃってましたけれども、
and as
earthquake early warning. So,
Mr. Anawat was talking, this early warning, so there was a strong concern and expectations. So I'd like to respond with my materials. In Japan, with this long period ground motion, we've experienced them several times. Notable cases will be Tokachioki earthquake 2003. We had a long period ground motion where the oil tank had a fire. 2004 Niigata earthquake, 2007 Niigata Chuetsu-oki, they also had a long period ground motion. And high-rise buildings in Tokyo had a damage. And the largest damage was a 2011 Tohoku earthquake. So the epicenter was in Tohoku, but hundreds of kilometers away in Tokyo, there was this long period ground motion, and many high-rise buildings had a severe damage and shaking.
800キロも離れてたんですね。大阪にある超高層
in Osaka, 800 kilometers away,
共振しまして、10分ほ
they
ど
also had this long period ground motion, and there were 10 minutes of shaking, and there was extensive damage caused by this shaking. So this disaster resilience, it is difficult to evaluate the actual high-rise building. So there's the artificial earthquake device, but it's also still difficult. But in Japan, there's E-Defense. There's one of the world's largest artificial earthquake device. So we've done some experiments. This is in 2008. So we reconstructed this high-rise buildings, and also 2008, 2009, we had a furniture, and also at the top, we also had the top floors. And in 2013, it's not a full scale, but about 1/3 reduced model of the high-rise building, and we did the experiment. So with the long period ground motions in Japan, in the Shinjuku Mitsui building, there's a TMD, 1,800 tons of TMD, and oil dumper also installed. And also there's a technology developed from Tohoku University. Professor Ikago developed this IRDT actually installed in Sumitomo Shinjuku building.
Earthquake early warning に対しては
And also the earthquake early warning.
なかなか日本の方でも実はあんまり
It is
有効じゃないんじゃないかなと思ってる人が
some Japanese people actually doubt about the effectiveness of it.
能登半島沖地震
But in
の時の
Noto earthquake 2024, this early earthquake warning system. So I'd like to introduce how well it functions. There were 44 kilometers from the epicenter, Anamizu.
地震です。地震です。
ああ、やば。やばいやばいやばいやばいやばいやばいやばい。
地震です。
ああ、戻るか。戻ろうか。ああ、やばいやばいやばいやばいやばいやばい。ああ、やばい。
地震警報が来て、だいたい15秒後ぐらいに
early earthquake warning.
に襲われております。で、より近い
So the large quake came 15 seconds after the warning. In this is Suzu, like even closer to the epicenter. So the large quake came 5 seconds after.
緊急地震速報です。強い揺れに警戒してください。
まとめになります。日本は
This is a summary
震度に対しては2000年ぐらい
of Japan has
研究が進められてまして、
been doing the research about long period ground motion.
地震対策を備えた超高層ビル
And
も
there
あ
have
り
been
ます。
buildings with countermeasures to the long period ground motion of the early earthquake warning system. In Japan, it has been proven effective. For the Thai people, say they know it's effective, but they say there's a cost issue. So it is probably difficult to just transfer it to Thailand, but we need to make some measures to make it cost effective. Thank you very much. So the next presentation will be the last presentation for the first half Japanese presentation. So Mr. Ryoichi Kawabe from JICA Thai office.
はい、大丈夫です。スライドの共有をお願いいたします。
はい。
本日JICA のタイ事務所の取り組みについてというタイトルになっておりますけれども、
Mr. Kawabe will be introducing us the initiatives by JICA Thai office.
はい、すみません。今、
Okay, so
共有されてますでしょうか。まだ
今見えました。
is a video shared? Okay, so I'm Kawabe from JICA Thai office. So I did an exchange of opinion with Tohoku University people when they visited Thailand. So maybe as a debriefing session of the earthquake, it might be a little different perspective, but I hope you can bear with me. As someone who was in Thailand when the earthquake happened, if I can share these experiences, this office, this building was completed before the new seismic standards. This is a 31st floor, and this is a situation of the office. One of our colleagues shot this video.
こちらはもう地震がほぼ収まった後ですけども、細長い事
It's after
務所のすぐ向かいにある
the earthquake has almost subsided, but this is a building
かなり
in front of our building.
当時は波が出てて、だいぶ
This is a
落ち着いてきた。
pole on a rooftop has been shaken a lot,
事務所のメンバーもどう避難するかっていうのを慌てて話してるん
and
ですけど
people in the office were also talking about how to evacuate.
すいません。ということで、日本人
Okay,
の我
so
々もかなり慌ててですね、
we Japanese used to earthquake, but we were very
お急ぎで
shocked as well, and we rushed down with
すいません。
stairs.
では、タイ事務所の、
So
取り組
as
みについて、ご紹
the
介させていただき
initiatives of JICA
地
Thai,
震関係で我々が少しどういうことをやったかということ
so what we have done in relation to the earthquake as well.
JICA のことをご存じない方も多いかもしれません
So
が、
for those who are not familiar to JICA,
実施する機関となっています。
so we are executing Japan's ODA activities. Thai has been a very important partner from Japan, so it's been 70 years since we've been doing these ODA activities.
インフラが分かりやすいのでまとめて
So infrastructure is easier to see. So these major airports
縦断する橋20個
and
川がチャオプレア川という川がありますが、
the
韓国に20個の
river,
橋がありますけど、
and there are 20 rivers,
日本が協力し
and
ていたりとかですね、
14 of them Japan has
日
contributed,
本の協力 70% やっていたりとか、
and also the water as well, the 70%,
まあ手入
and
れ
it's
が
been done by
あ
yen
利子
loaning,
が日本にきちんと帰ってきているという意味でも、
and these
日
are
本にとっても
returned with the interest.
負荷が少ないというかですね、
So it is less burdening to Japan as well.
一方で、タイ自体は
And
GDP
Thai
per capita がですね、
as well as GDP per capita
に
is $7,000.
100万以上なってますので、もうか
So
なり
the annual income is more than 1 million yen, so it's growing.
協力を我々は展開
So we are seeking different perspective of contribution now.
すみません。今後の方向性としてはですね、
So this is
新
the
たな協
future
力モデルの創造を
strategy.
してますが、今まで
One is to produce a new collaboration model.
ではなくて、
Not only Japan
いかに日
supporting
タイウィンウィンとなるか、特に
how with the ODA, Japan and Thai can build the win-win
生み出しなが
relationship,
ら
and also the benefits to Japanese society and have further strengthened relationship is the focus.
例えばですね、
And one of the concrete
今
examples
日本の光線のシステムを入れてほしいというような話
Thai,
これも円借款でお金を貸して
there's also
けども
also a demand for Japan system,
作るという
and with yen loaning, there's also a support,
シンクロトロンを
and also the synchrotron.
タイでも作りたいということを言っていて、
Thailand would like to make their own synchrotron, and that will also be done with the yen loaning. And Tokyo University and Weekend are helping these initiatives as well. And subway, urban train systems, we support from planning to actual executions. And Japanese trains are installed, so it's not only utilizing technologies, but also it's a benefit to the private companies as well.
第三国への協力ということで、
As support for the third country. So together with Thailand, we support country around it. And also as a Japan, we support the entire ASEAN. The one on the right. So it is a ASEAN disaster medical support. So it's been done for about 10 years. So for this disaster situations, ASEAN medical team in Japan so coordinates activities together. So we did protocols for the dispatching the emergency rescue team, and also disaster drills supporting a large disaster happening in Thailand. How Japan will support such situations. So these kind of drills have been conducted. And this Myanmar earthquake, so the ASEAN medical team also went to Myanmar. So with them, so we already had a network with this project, so we could share information smoothly, and we could support this ASEAN team as well. And in this disaster, we also had a disaster reduction area. In 2011, there was a flood, and so Japanese government with JICA scheme had a lot of support. And with this Myanmar earthquake, so Japanese embassy, Mr. Kajiwara explained, there are lots of support through the Emirates, sending specialists, and JICA supported them on the ground. And we'll be doing the workshop soon as well with Myanmar. We'll be doing the administration for the dispatching of the medical team. So it was just a rough overview, but these activities, what we're doing here, and these JICA activities as well as its disaster-related initiatives. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kawabe. So this concludes the first half Japanese presentation. So we'd like to see the question and answer. We haven't received any questions, so we'd like to move on to the little break, 5 minutes break. Thank you very much.
So it's about time. So we want to move on to the second half of our presentation. Can we have the slide taken off?
So I think we have to change the slide remove this slide first. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we want to move on to the second half of our presentations. I am Kanako Yuchi from IRIDeS Tohoku University, and I will be your host for this part of the meeting. For this part, we will have 6 presentations, and all of them will be in English. After the presentations, we will have time for question and answers, but please feel free to send the questions using the question and answer button that you see on the screen as they come up during the presentation. Please do not forget to mention who you are addressing the question to. Please also be reminded that we limit questions to general participants at this time, as the press will have the opportunity to ask questions later. So it's my pleasure to introduce our 5th presenter, Honorable Ms. Lashanikwan Tontip, who is a member of the Senate of Thailand and Director of International Tsunami Museum in Khao Lak, Thailand organization. Her presentation is titled From Policy to Practice, Challenges and Opportunities for Resilience in Thailand's Disaster Management. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I would like to express my heartfelt condolence to all those affected by the 2025 Myanmar earthquake in Myanmar, in Thailand, and across the region. Our thoughts are with the victims, their families, and the community still recovering from this profound tragedy. Such moments remind us that disasters do not recognize borders. Our neither should our compassion, our solidarity, our commitment to building resilience together. It is truly a privilege to be here with all of you today. This forum is more than just a gathering of professionals. It is a space of shared purpose where we come together across borders to reflect, to learn, and to move forward with collective strength. The 2025 Myanmar earthquake has reminded us all in the most painful way. These disaster risks in our region are not distant or occasional, they are real, recurring, and interconnected. Today, I would like to share some reflections from Thailand's experience, not only on what has been done, but on what still needs to be done to ensure that our policy translates into real preparedness on ground, and that resilience becomes something we build to every day, not only after disasters, right? The first one, Thailand policy framework on disaster management. Thailand disaster management is guided by the Disaster Prevention and Mitigation Act of 2007, which assigned the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation as the central coordinating body. This structure allows national, provincial, and local actors to collaborate under a unified legal framework. Thailand has also aligned with international frameworks such as the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, emphasizing risk reduction, preparedness, and adaptive capacity, moving beyond reactive response. But as the Myanmar earthquake has shown us, the gap between preparedness on paper and preparedness in practice can determine the scale of the tragedy on the power of resilience. The second, from policy to practice, key challenges. The first, decentralization remains incomplete. Although disaster management responsibilities have been delegated to local government, in practice, many lack sufficient resources, technical expertise, and authority to act swiftly. As a result, response are often delayed, as local officials must wait for instruction or support from central agency. While Thailand have made significant progress on the policy front, several key challenges remain in implementation. The first, decentralization is incomplete. Local governments often lack adequate resources and autonomy to act swiftly during emergency. Many still rely heavily on central agency for decisions making. The second, resources are unevenly distributed. While urban centers like Bangkok are relatively well prepared, but for the rural, those closer to seismic zone often have limited access to hazard map, emergency rule, and essential equipment. These regional gaps undermine the effectiveness of national preparedness. For the third, risk communication and public awareness are still underdeveloped. Although the early warning systems are in place, the last mile remains a persistent gap. Information must not only reach people, but also be clearly understood and actionable, especially in the diverse linguistic and cultural context. In the past, many Thais view earthquakes as distant risks, unlikely to affect their daily life, but the 2025 Myanmar earthquake and its impact has been a wake-up call, causing tragic losses, but also heightening public awareness in a way we have never seen before. However, this rise in our awareness brings now challenges. One is panic behavior driven by fear rather than knowledge. Take the collapse of the State Audit Office of the Kingdom of Thailand building as an example. The footage of that event spread rapidly and left a strong impression on the public. Many people are on feeling remorse, now instinctively rush out the buildings, despite long-standing guidance inspired by Japan, which advised people to first seek shelter and only evacuate when checking has stopped. This tragic incident risk becoming a collective trauma that override rational emergency behavior. It underscores how critical it is not only to raise awareness, but to communicate accurate, trusted, and context-sensitive guidance so that fear does not take precedence over safety. In short, the challenge ahead is to ensure that policy do not just exist on the paper, but are lived, understood, and trusted by people across all levels of society. The third, building resilience before the disaster. Despite this challenges, Thailand is making meaningful progress, especially in proactive risk reduction, early warning system, but it has been expanded with new seismic monitoring station and SMS alert platform deployed in high-risk area, cross-border collaboration that allowing countries to conduct joint simulation and share lessons, including from this very earthquake. And most importantly, community-based disaster risk management is gaining ground. In some provinces, communities are mapping local hazards, conducting evacuation drills, and preparing on their own term before the next disaster arrives. This effort showed that resilience must be built before the ground shake, not after. The fourth one is policy recommendation based on Thailand experience and lesson learned from the Myanmar earthquake. We propose the following recommendation. The first one is to empower legal governments with real authority, funding, and training to act independently during crisis. Through decentralization must include not only mandates, but also means. The second one is build integrated real-time data system that connect national, provincial, and local agencies to improve speed and accuracy in disaster response. The third one is to promote a culture of preparedness through public education, early warning, literacy, and inclusive risk communication, especially targeting vulnerable groups and border communities. The fourth one is strengthen the policy focus on preparedness over recovery. While recovery is essential, Thailand disaster management policy are historically prioritize post-disaster compensation and rebuilding. It is now to shift the policy balance toward investment in preparedness, early action, and risk-informed planning. This include integrating preparedness metric into budget allocation, national planning, and local development strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, for disaster do not recognize border, but resilience can transcend them. The 2025 Myanmar earthquake is not just a tragedy. It is a wake-up call for us all to move from well-written plan to well-executed action, from policy to people, from silo to solidarity. It reminds us that resilience cannot be built after the fact. It must be cultivated long before the disaster strike. Thought anticipation, coordination, and commitment to shared responsibility. Let me leave you with this thought. We cannot stop the ground from shaking, but we can decide how we prepare, how quickly we respond, how steady we stand, how swiftly we rise, and how much stronger we become. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you very much, Honorable Ms. Torntap, and also trying to make the presentation in time. And also next, I am excited to introduce our next presenter, Professor Amon Piama. Professor Piama is a professor at Kaset Sart University in Thailand and also president of the Thailand Structural Engineering Association. He's joining from Thailand today. The talk is titled Structural Damages Found in Tall Buildings in Bangkok from Magnitude 7.7 Myanmar Earthquake. Thank you. Professor, I'm not hearing you. Would you be able to pull up your
Okay.
Okay, great.
So now I think you can see me already.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, just a moment, please.
Okay.
Let me. Okay. Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me to join this seminar. My name is Amon Pitmanmas. As you know, on 28 March, the magnitude 7.7 earthquake occurred in Mandalay region in Myanmar. It occurred at a depth of 10 kilometers. This earthquake is created by Skang Fault, which is one of the most active faults in the region. This earthquake has caused severe impact to several regions in Thailand, including northern, central, Bangkok, and peripherals. I would like to emphasize the fact that the earthquake epicenter is very far away from Chiang Mai and Bangkok. As you can see, the distance 500 kilometers to Chiang Mai and 1,000 kilometers to Bangkok. Yet it created a big impact to Thailand. The earthquake from Skang Fault is not beyond our expectation. And actually, there are three sources of earthquake fault that may impact Bangkok. One is the Skang Fault, the second one is Sisawat and Three Pagoda Fault in the western part of Thailand, and the other one is subduction zone in the Andaman Sea. The problem of strong shaking is due to the geotechnical setting of Bangkok, which is located on soft to very soft soil. According to Professor Pending of AIT, this soft clay can create long period ground motions and can amplify the seismic wave by 3 to 4 times. Actually, we know of our seismic risks in Thailand as well as in Bangkok. So actually, we have the law that enforced the design and construction of seismic resistant buildings in 2007, which cover 22 provinces, including Bangkok. This law has been revised in 2021 to cover 43 provinces in Thailand. We also have the seismic design standard, which follow ASCE 7, and we also add some modification especially for high-rise buildings. According to this standard, the Greater Bangkok area, which is situated on the soft soil, is subdivided into 10 zones. Bangkok is zone number 5 in the picture, and we have different spectrum lines for different zones. This spectrum curve are for engineers to design their buildings. So this slide shows 5% damping DBE and MCE spectrum along with the measured spectral value. As you can see, the recorded spectrum is significantly lower than the code for a period around 0 to 2.5 seconds and become closer for longer periods. I would like to give you a picture of the summary of damage. Actually, we have just total collapse of just one building, which is the State Audit Office building. This building is under construction. We have structural damage found in approximately 10 buildings, mostly in high-rise buildings. And we have many non-structural damage in many buildings. Several hundred buildings are suffering from the non-structural damage. So we can say that all buildings in Bangkok are safe from the earthquake with varying degree of damages, no reported injuries or death, except the collapsed SAO building, with around 100 laborers dead and missing now. I would like to take you to the collapse of the SAO building. I have to say that the collapse of SAO building is quite unusual, as this building is new and actually it has been designed according to the seismic design code. From the video footage, some failure points have been observed you can see that they are exploding failure at the top of the column, at the top column. Some exploding failure at the lower down long column. And we also, it is very surprising to say that we also found that the collapse may also start from the lift core at the back of the building. And this creates lots of dispute among structural engineers in Thailand because the lift core is supposed to be the strongest part, but it collapsed firstly and immaturely. So some experts state that this may be due to the location of the core wall, which is not symmetrical, and it can create torsion. However, this is just the hypothesis, and it remains to be proved. Now, I would like to show you the result of some investigation of the damage of several buildings that I, as the president of Thailand Structural Engineers Association, I bring up about 200 engineers to investigate the damage and to help the owner of the building to check the building condition. So we have found several damage, especially in the core wall of the high-rise building. As you can see, the failure is more or less similar among many buildings. For example, this one is the hospital, 25-story, that the damage is found by the concrete spalling, reinforcement buckle, and we found in the stair hall of the building at the basement level. And let's move to another building. This one is 24-story building in Siam area. And we have also found the damage in the lift core wall, and almost the same pattern as the previous one. That is, we have seen the spalling of the concrete as well as the longitudinal bar buckles. So another big building, 30-story office building in Nonthaburi, which is northwest of Bangkok. Same, almost the same thing. This building, the damage occurs in the third floor of the stair hall. And as you can see here, this is myself taking the picture and inspect the damage. And we have found the concrete spalling and the rebar buckling, similar to the other buildings that we have found damaged. And we have observed that we also check the reinforcement detail, and we found that some building, they do not follow the design drawings. For example, the actual spacing of the horizontal bar is double compared with the design drawing, and there are no link tie bar in the actual construction, which is different from the design. And also in some building, we have found that the concrete quality is also doubtful. And currently this building, they are providing the temporary shoring by steel section, and they are waiting for final approval for repair and strengthening. Yeah, this is, let me check. This is the Silom, one of the building in Silom region, which is the 53-4 condominium building. And this is the 45-story condominium, and you can see severe damage in the core wall. And some of this building, I am responsible for repair design and retrofitting to restore the structural capacity of these buildings. So I would like to talk about one point regarding the traditional design of core wall in Thailand. Many high-rise building in Bangkok is, classified as seismic design category C, according to the importance and the seismic intensity. The common form of the structure of high-rise building in Thailand is we have core wall, usually at elevator core and stair core. We have also perimeter column around the buildings, and we have flat slabs. So according to our design standard, this kind of the structural form normally engineers use to design as the building frame system, and they specify ordinarily reinforced concrete shear wall, and with the reduction factor, the force reduction factor or R factor equal to 5. So this is you can see this one is the traditional or typical design of our core wall in low seismic zone. Of course, we recognize that there is also special wall, which has the much higher ductility, but it is not popular because we believe that in our case in Bangkok or in other parts of Thailand, the earthquake is not as large as in the other parts of the world. That's why we are normally using this type of the ordinary wall. Okay. There is also some damage in the column, reinforced concrete column. Okay, let's consider other damage. We have found only one case of damage to reinforced concrete column in the ground floor of the 54-story condominium in Bangkok. Surprisingly, the location of damage is at the center of the column, which is quite unexpected because I think that the column should be most damaged at the top or bottom part of the column. And we can also see some damage in transfer floor, in transfer beam, and in some other element of the structures. So finally, we have little report regarding structural damage in other provinces other than Bangkok. One notable case is the ground floor column damage in a hotel in Chiang Mai. As can be seen from this slide, the damage is at the top of the column. This type of damage is not unusual because the ground floor is open and the soft story might be the case. However, the structure still not collapse, probably because the intensity of shaking is not strong enough. So thank you very much. This concludes my presentation. I hope I not exceed the time.
Thank you for your effort.
Yeah, I hurry up a lot. Okay.
Oh, no. I mean, thank you very much for your informative presentation, especially from Thailand on the damage on buildings. Thank you again. Okay, so on the program next, we have Dr. Kyo Swamin Tain, who is a founder of Unique Lab in Myanmar. He was supposed to be presenting on a talk titled Overview of the Sagaing Earthquake and Current Loss Inventory Survey in Inlet Lake. However, he is in a situation where the internet connection is not very well. He have informed us that he have traveled to several locations in the city, but then couldn't secure the internet connection for this time. He was kindly sending email saying that he will be happy to receive any of the questions from the participants today. And so please do so if it needs to be happening. And so we will be going on to the next presentation, the eighth presentation. We have Dr. Ruben Beskovo from IRIDeS, Tohoku University. And his talk is titled 2025 Myanmar Earthquake, Investigating Damage Through Remote Sensing, News Reports, and Social Media. And would you like to put up your slides?
Yes, can you?
Okay, great.
You can see me all right?
Yes,
no problem.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so thank you all for being here. I am Ruben, currently an assistant professor at the Disaster Geoinformatics lab here at IRIDeS. And over the last month, our lab has been investigating and refining impacts on and structural damage through a combination of social sensing and conventional remote sensing. Just quickly, I want to acknowledge the project team, and please check us out at the link at the bottom of the page, or you can see our Myanmar project page by following the QR code. And also like to acknowledge some of the providers that supported our investigation today. As per the title, our goal was to collect whatever information was available in the immediacy of the event. And this includes a general overview of the physics behind the disaster, such as the USGS damage review. But beyond that, we also aim to leverage media reporting through social sensing before conventional sense data becomes available. As distributed social sensing begins quite quickly after a disaster, while there can be significant lag between an event and the release of satellite products, depending on the positioning of the satellite relative to the time period. So we initially piloted a pipeline to process distributed news media that we collected within the first 48 hours of the disaster. Our original pilot experiment leveraged both social media and news media scraped through the web. And then we used the cloud-based large language models to extract data such as location, name structures, damage type, and number of people affected, including deaths, but also missing and injured, as reported in the news. And we can then directly map this through geocoding services to create impact mapping on quite a fast return period. Because of the positive impression we got from our first 48-hour pilot, we expanded the scope of the experiment to the first 96 hours, roughly 4 days, depending on the time zone. And here you can see the impact areas reported in the first 17-ish hours in UTC time, and we call this day one. In Myanmar, we can see that immediately we get some granularity around the earthquake location in the epicenter here, you can see, while there's not so much detail around the more remote areas. And we also have significant amounts of reports from Thailand and Chatuchak neighborhood, which is where the high-rise that collapsed is near, I believe. In the next 24 hours, we got more reports of peripheral regions in rural central Myanmar and more granularity around the epicenter. For example, the Kyaukse and Kalau township, but also Bang Shui near in the center of Bangkok. 24 hours following that, we see the same trend continue as we continue to harvest details around around the center of Mandalay and Naypyidaw. And on day 4, we mostly get some more details around the regional Myanmar. On day 5, finally, we fill out a lot of the regional Thai region where damage or impacts were reported. What I just showed is the spatial evolution of reporting that we can generate in near real time relative to the information release schedule. But our analysis goes beyond that, but beyond just the affected areas. We can ID directly landmarks of affected peoples that we can then aggregate per area per time interval. And the main goal of this is to supplement remote sensing information, which should give us significantly more detail about the physical condition, but as I mentioned, might not be immediately available. The main issue with classical remote sensing, as I said, is remains time. And so we have no guarantee that a satellite will be in position at the time we need, i.e. at the time of the event. And so as you can see, it isn't until day 3 and day 8 that we get significant coverage of the main impact areas in Myanmar, namely Mandalay and the surrounding regions. Still, we aim to use the imagery that we obtain later on to corroborate and expand upon our social sensing. And ALOS-2 imagery was made available a week after the event. So our group computed the coherence between pre and post-event SAR imagery to try and detect changes. And you can see here, plotted in purple, the thresholded changes of the coherence, which correlates to damage in key areas around Mandalay. We calibrate the threshold of this coherence by cross-referencing the data from actual disaster charter data from visual assessments. And so you can see in red areas, for example, where the charter detected damage, and we can see that coherence is also, that there is incoherent data there. So we can say that here our method detects some sort of damage. Moreover, by calibrating the threshold on the disaster charter data, we can expand beyond the coverage that companies like Copernicus, EMS, or UNOSAT products deliver, because they tend to be limited scope, and identify regions such as Bant, where you can see the top right, that are not yet documented by the damage. Through social sensing, we can ID areas and landmarks early on. And when more info becomes available, we can check these detections, for example, with the conventional remote sensing, such as this coherence, to expand beyond named landmarks for residential areas, which we can't detect through news media, but appear in things like coherence change, as you can see. And rural areas especially can be rather large and not well documented in media. So here we show when this distributed sensing becomes available for us in the areas surrounding Mandalay. For example, you can see some stupas and some schools being damaged, but we have no way of identifying where they are until we get the coherence data. By the time of this analysis, we still had not surveyed. The area around Mandalay was still not surveyed by Copernicus, for example, and you can see in red the areas that were actually surveyed. And in terms of, well, to summarize, I guess, on my presentation, as of 4 weeks post-disaster, there still appears to be no comprehensive report compiled on the overall damage and humanitarian impact, especially in Myanmar. Our analysis took into account around 750 English and Japanese news articles, which reported mainly around Bangkok, Mandalay, and Naypyidaw. But reporting, one thing that comes out of our method is that we get better and better accuracy as time progresses, but we still are able to deliver information in near real time, depending obviously on the news scheduling. And by using a combination of remote sensing and news-based sensing, we can gain a better insight by leveraging one against the other. For example, leveraging news-based assessment to verify remote sensing assessments, to identify non-covered areas by limited scope surveys like EMS, or leveraging remote sensing to identify a finer grain damage, such as residential areas that are not picked up through news and media. And news-based impact extraction can operate in near real time, as I said, even in areas that don't necessarily have such high coverage of news media, such as Myanmar. But that'll be all for me for today. Thank you so much. And be sure to ask questions later on if you have any.
Well, we'll take question at the end, but
Yeah.
thank you, Ruben, for your interesting talk. And we see the opportunity of combining the social media and social information into remote sensing. And so it's really fascinating. And so we will be moving on to the next speaker, Professor Jie Chu at the Institute of Engineering Mechanics, China Earthquake Administration. His talk is titled The Effects of the 2025 Myanmar Earthquake on Buildings in China, a brief summary. And I believe he's connecting from China.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, can you see the slides clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm going to, I think many people talked about things about in Thailand, to the south of the Myanmar. And now I'm going to take this opportunity to bring people's attention to the other side of Myanmar in China. So here is my map showing the geography and the global picture. So here is the estimated affected area by USGS. And here is the border of China and Myanmar. You can see my mouse. And actually here, this is the circle denoting the 1,000 kilometers away from the epicenter. And just now, our speaker has talked about the high-rise building in Bangkok, and there are an exception. One building collapsed in Bangkok, but on the other hand of on the other side of the earthquake in China is also affected by the earthquake, but not that severe damage was observed. So strong tremor was felt in all the province of Yunnan. I circled by this dashed line here. This is the Yunnan province, the most southwestern province in China, and also the closest to the earthquake. And damage was reported to only a very small area here, which is the town of Ruili in China. And most of the damage is concentrated here, but the strong motion is felt in a greater part of Yunnan province. And in the large cities farther away from the epicenter, like in Chengdu and Chongqing, more than 1,000 kilometers away, and there are also many high-rise buildings. We have instrumentation on them, so we have some records during the earthquake. And here is a close-up view of where Ruili is. Ruili is the most heavily damaged town during this earthquake. This is the epicenter of the Myanmar earthquake, and this is Ruili. And this is the capital city of Yunnan province. And here I overlapped the ground motion recording, the peak acceleration of the ground motion recording on the map. So you can see here, the maximum peak ground acceleration is about 60 centimeter per second square, or 60 gal in Ruili. And this is the even closer up view of Ruili. It is like a peninsula extruding into the territory of Myanmar, and it's surrounded by Myanmar from three sides. And this is the downtown Ruili. And here we have two strong motion observation stations in Ruili. One is closer to Myanmar, the other is in the inland. And from the recording, we can see the maximum acceleration in Ruili is about 57 centimeter per square second here. And in the inland side, the other side of the downtown, the acceleration is much smaller. If we compare the spectral, the response spectral of the recorded ground motion with the design spectral in China for the local region, we can see that the recorded motion is very comparable to the, the serviceability level in the Chinese seismic design code, which has a 63% probability of incidence in 50 years. So within this level, the buildings are assumed to be essentially elastic. But in this earthquake, the ground motion has exceeded this elastic limit in some period range. So from this comparison, we can say that some damage to the buildings are expected. And here are the damages. First, there are 2 people who were reported injured in the earthquake. These are the only injury during the earthquake in China. And how were these 2 people injured? They are injured by the falling water tank from top of a 30-story reinforced concrete building. So the water tank was not securely fastened to the roof, and they fell. And when they fell, they broke some parapets and balcony in lower stories, and the fallen battery injured the 2 people on the ground. So these were the only 2 injuries in China. And also in Ruili, as observed maybe in Bangkok, we observed many cracking to either the non-structural masonry wall or the coupling beam in residential buildings, which are mostly shear wall structures. And in the rural areas, we have this kind of very huge cracks because this kind of houses are usually built by owners themselves and do not conform to the seismic design code of China. So we can see the cracks of this is a brick masonry building without any rebars. And this is the adobe masonry building with very large cracks. This is maybe the most heavy damage to the rural houses in this earthquake. And another interesting observation is made on schools. Even in this kind of a very remote town of China, the school buildings built after 2021 tend to use base isolation. So this is a base isolated building, 4-story building. And we can see here, the isolation layer, there is a gap here. This is the staircase from superstructure to the basement, and here is the isolation layer. And the concrete alongside the isolation layer has been spout. And here is the masonry infill, which jammed the movement of the isolation layer and was broken. Another case is this one. This is also another primary school in Ruili, also a base isolated building. And here we can see even if the masonry infill has been separated carefully with the superstructure by styrofoam spray, but here because of poor detailing, the upper pier of the rubber bearing impacted with the masonry infill and make some damage to the non-structural components. And another kind of damage was observed to non-building structures like fences, brick fences. They fall, but very luckily they didn't cause an injury or death during the earthquake. And besides the damage, the building damage in Ruili, the strong motion was felt in a greater part of Yunnan province. So here in Dali, which is about 560 kilometers away from the epicenter, we have an instrumented building here. And from the recording, we can see that at the basement and the first floor of the building, the ground motion is only like 10 centimeters per square second. And this acceleration is amplified to about 60, 80 centimeters per square second at the top of the building. And from this recording, we can evaluate the comfort and safety of the building very rapidly. For example, we can evaluate the peak flow acceleration from the recording, and we can see by some criteria, most of the floors have very annoying shaking during the earthquake, and on top of the floors, the people may feel very annoying. And on the other hand, we can evaluate the maximum interstory drift ratio, and the maximum interstory drift ratio is only about 0.07%, which is still far away from the immediate occupancy limit described by the Chinese seismic code. So the structure remains safe. And even further away, we have several buildings instrumented and obtained the recording during the earthquake, including a base isolated building and 4 high-rise building higher than 180 meters. And the highest is this one, it's more than 300 meters. And we are processing this data, and we look forward to sharing this data to the community so that people can make full advantage of this recording. Even although these recordings are not that large, the PGA is only less than 1 gal. But I think people can learn a lot from the recording to learn about the behavior of super high-rise buildings. And this is an example of the highest building we instrumented in our network. And I'd like to express my appreciation to the Strong Motion Observation Center of our institute, who shared the strong motion intensity map and the raw data of the instrumented building in Dali. And I also like to thank Yunnan Earthquake Agency for their field survey, and all the photos I showed about building damage are taken by their staff during the field survey. And this is my presentation, and thank you for your attention, and all questions are welcome.
Thank you very much, Professor Chu. We benefit very much from the information on the border from the China side. And so we will be moving on to our final presenter for the day, Professor Yuichi Ono from IRIDeS, Tohoku University, and his talk is titled Damage Update and Future Outlook.
am I showing the presentation, Kanako-sensei? I cannot hear.
Half of it. Oh,
Half of it. Half of it.
sort of half, and it's not fully presented.
Oh, I don't know what's happening here. But there's not much time anyway. So maybe rather than I give a 10 minutes talk, I will talk about in 1 minute. Then we go to the closing as the time is pressing so much. So my presentation is about estimating the damage and loss for the Myanmar earthquake. Then I took up with the few sources, but I got that from the news source from BBC, and this ASEAN's report for the damage report from the ASEAN, the situation update. Then I got to the conclusion that the first 1 week, the death and injuries and so on, they are stabilized within 1 week. It's now the most recent report as of April 22nd is the deaths of 3,757. But the first 5 days, the death number increased sharply to the 144 to about 3,000. So it's almost saturated. Although last 5 days increased about 100 people or 50 to 100 people death is accumulated the last 5 days. But initially, many reports said maybe the deaths would be exceeding 10,000. But so far we see as a number from the government source of the Myanmar is saturating to the 3,000 to 4,000. And on the other hand, in case of the cyclone Nargis, which hit Myanmar in 2012, the death report ended up with 130,000. The first initial death was very small. But, in the Myanmar government now in a difficult situation that the numbering of the counting of the death or injuries and damage is only in a limited area, I think, because of the internal conflict. As Nagami-sensei mentioned, there's still some bombing going on. Even ceasefire was announced for 20 days, which ended already a few days ago. So this is a situation, and I think we will have more number of deaths and injuries when the time comes up. The problem is that right now the Myanmar is in the middle of the so-called pre-monsoon period. April to May, the temperature is the hottest in Myanmar, and it's becoming to the rainy season. And May is very unstable air or atmospheric conditions. Thunderstorms and lightnings and storms, local severe storms would happen very frequently. So the earthquake damage plus this heavy rain, strong storms, this may cause other kind of hazards like landslides, the flooding, and so on. The infrastructure damaged. So the people who are in the shelter, especially for the youth and the elderly people, disabled people, they may be at high risk for a few weeks, even after. So that's a worry we are considering. And because of this no ceasefire situation, we cannot go to Myanmar. Investigators, researchers still cannot go to the Myanmar. So I think it's very important to stop the internal conflict so that they can receive the international aid, but also the researchers to investigate what happened. And this is, I think, most important. I think I used up already 3 minutes, 4 minutes. So I stopped my presentation. Please see my slides after this session. Thank you, Ichi Sensei.
Thank you, Ono Sensei. And so for this, we want to conclude the reporting part in English. But with the time remaining, I would like to take one-on questions. And I already have 2 questions that's been sent by the chat. And one is already responded by Dr. Piyama. And I think the second one is also addressed to Dr. Piyama. And so I will read the second one, but maybe you can also respond to the second one and the first one if needed. The second question is I would like to ask Thailand the difference between the surveys conducted by TSEA versus building damages submitted via Trafi Fondue app. Were all cases submitted through the app surveyed by engineers?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So actually, TC is the Thailand Structural Engineers Association. It is a private organization, and I have the experience of sending the volunteer engineers to survey the damage in the several events in the past. For example, the big flood in Chiang Rai last year. We also sent about 200 to 300 engineers to inspect about 1,700 houses suffer damage from the flood in Chiang Rai. Okay, so actually, for the TC experiences, we inspect every building, and we send the team. The team consists of about 4 to 5 engineers, and upon the request, so we will check their photos. We will have some preliminary talk to the owners, and then we will send our teams of engineers that have been trained and to inspect the building, and we make the report. But I think for the Taffy Fondue, it has been operated by Bangkok Metro Project Authority. So this is the governmental authority, but there are many requests. I heard that they receive about 10,000 requests from houses and condominium and tall buildings. So they do not inspect every cases. It is impossible due to the huge demand of the people. So they will first check from the photo first, and they will check whether if the photo does not show any sign of severe damage, they will not send. Okay, they will not send the engineers, and they will select only the severest one. So that they can screen first from the photo. So this is not the same as the TC, because TC send to every building upon the request. Yes.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Thank you. I hope this answered the question for Jin. And so with this, I think we would like to move on to the closing. So finally, Professor Yuichi Ono, Deputy Director of IRIDeS, will give a closing remark. And Ono Sensei intends to make this closing very short, but in Japanese and English.
Yeah, I heard I can only speak in English, one language. Still interpretation services available. So very quickly in 1 minute across. So thank you very much for the participants, listeners, and the presenters for this session. We had quite good information from Thailand damage and also from China, but we couldn't go to Myanmar, so the live information from Myanmar is not available. So that's still lacking. And if situation change, we'd love to take up on the research on the Myanmar side. But I really hope this Myanmar would open up the country in a good way again to receive the aid and the international assistance. And in terms of Thailand damage, structural damages, wall damages, and all the analysis were displayed and presented today. So we have very better understanding of what happened in Bangkok. Although still have psychological issues and some remaining issues there. But I think the Bangkok, the Thailand Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Embassy of Japan mentioned it's safe to travel Bangkok and Thailand. So please don't worry about going to the Bangkok. And I think there are many other issues to be addressed, but I don't have time right now to. And I would like to close the meeting for the time purposes. But thank you again for about more than 200 people participated in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ono. With this closing remark, I am officially closing today's meeting. Thank you to the panelists who participated to this conference from all over different parts of Asia, and then also participants who have joined from across the world. Before you leave, please take a moment to complete the questionnaire. The link for the questionnaire can be found in the chat box. And thank you once again for joining from various time zones Wishing you all wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening. For members participating in press question and answer session, we will start in approximately 5 minutes. Please leave this webinar and re-enter the Zoom meeting using the link previously provided. Please also do the same for the panelists to exit this webinar and use a different link provided earlier to rejoin the Zoom meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much again. Bye.